This is Dr. Mukhtar Yerima. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to say a few things about anxiety. In my preceding videos, I've talked about anxiety disorders and how distressing they might be and how impairing and disabling they might be in people who suffer from these types of mental conditions. So I just felt it is necessary for me to talk about the fact that virtually everybody from time to time when they engage in some type of social activities, they tend to have some feelings of anxiety. Now, this anxiety is normal in most people, and we will mention when it is considered normal and when it is considered abnormal. I would mention also what are the advantages, because obviously for it to occur in virtually everybody, at least when they begin social interaction, maybe it is a public speech or it's a kind of playing musical instruments with a lot of spectators watching me, and I begin to have this anxiety at the beginning of the social activity. For it to be so common, affecting virtually everybody, especially when they start, and only for it to go away within a short period of time, it means that the anxiety might have maybe some adaptive functions. So why is this thinking appropriate? Well, it goes back to the time of Yerkes and Dodson in early 1900s, who are a group of two psychologists that conducted a research. They wanted to see whether arousal or some level of stress or anxiety is related to the performance of a certain task, and they did a research on a group of mice, some kind of laboratory rats. What they did was to subject the rats to small amount of shock, to see whether that is going to reduce or increase their performance of a certain activity that they gave the rats to do. And what they also did was, after some time, to increase the amount of electric shock in some certain groups of rats so that they can be able to compare the group of rats that were not given shock at all, the group of rats that were given mild shock, and the group of rats that were given very large or very severe electric shock, to see how it has impacted their performance. So eventually what they realized was that, and it's a very important finding, was that minimal amounts of electric shock, which can be translated to minimal amounts of stress or minimal amounts of anxiety or arousal, was important in increasing the performance of those rats that were given that minimal amount of electric shock. Whereas they found that in the group that were given a very high amount of shock, their performance in fact deteriorated, while the group that was not given any shock at all, their performance also was nothing much to write home about. So in essence, the performance of those rats that were given minimal amount of shock tend to be the best. So, and that made them to come to a conclusion that for an optimal performance in individuals to be achieved, there needs to be some level of arousal, some levels of anxiety, only that anxiety should not last very long and it should not be so intense. And come to think of it, even if you're the best speaker or even if you're the best performer, you, I'm sure, realize that the few minutes or the few seconds that follow the commencement of your speech or of your performance, you tend to feel a little bit anxious. Only that a few seconds thereafter, those anxiety symptoms or that kind of being anxious tends to go away and you continue your activity. So in essence, you needed that kind of initial anxiety, initial arousal in order for you to function and in order for your optimal performance to come about. So it means that our body, being a very interesting machine, needs that kind of arousal. So when you look at it, what happens is that when you begin to perform in social settings where you're feeling observed, what is likely going to happen is that your brain will immediately perceive it as a stress. Now, what that will translate to is your body will now try to help you cope with that stress, because you've perceived the information and your brain interprets it as being stressful. So your brain now will say, okay, let's bring the best out of you in this situation. Let's make you shine. And so that's why your brain now will inform your heart to start beating a little bit faster And why should your heart beat a little bit faster in that situation? That is because your brain knows that your heart needs to beat faster and stronger so that more blood is pumped to every part of your body, including your brain. Your brain needs a lot of oxygen and a lot of nutrients in order for it to function optimally. And for that to happen, the heart, which circulates the blood that carries those nutrients and the oxygen, needs to pump faster and stronger so that those things that are needed would be provided. So, and that is why the heart beats that fast. Additionally, the rest of your body, if it is a performance, you need a lot of energy, you need a lot of agility, and the muscles and all those parts of your body that need to carry out those actions need also resources kind of to be able to do those functions, right? So again, by the time the heart beats fast, it will supply the oxygen and the nutrient needed, essentially the resources needed for the body to be able to achieve those roles, right? So that partly explains what happens when you begin to have that slight initial normal anxiety that occurs. And that is why it is in fact very normal for you to experience some level of anxiety whenever you begin to perform a certain action, especially if it is in public. Additionally, your brain does not stop there. It also gives you some motivation. It makes you a little bit motivated. It gives you additional push so that the best is going to come out of you. And that occurs because the same anxiety symptoms or the same center of the brain that is giving you those initial anxiety or mild anxiety symptoms is also going to stimulate some other parts of your brain that are responsible for attention and concentration. Your attention is going to be, you are going to be very focused, you're going to be seeing things more clearly, and you are essentially going to pay more attention to slight details. You are kind of put in a situation of alertness so that by the time you are performing this function, the best in you is going to come out. So this is the philosophy, so to speak, behind the mild anxiety that occurs in any social situation. And whether this person is a president or whether he is an award-winning actor, whenever they perform some action, there is some level of anxiety, and that level of anxiety is even important. So this drives me to the point where some people, because they are facing an examination, you see them going to take medications that reduce their maybe heart from beating fast. There are certain medications actually which when you take, it will lower your heart rate so that racing heart is not going to be there. It will not make your heart to beat fast. It will make you to calm down essentially. Now, most people who have taken those medications to abort or prevent the occurrence of that mild normal anxiety that occurs during those social performances actually end up regretting it, because like I said earlier, that normal initial anxiety is needed and it is necessary. So if it is an exam, maybe it is an oral exam and you dread facing examiners, and you went and took a certain medication that will abort all those initial reactions and responses that your body generates to bring the best out of you. Of course, that exam, first of all, you're going to be too relaxed for the examination, and then you would even develop some kind of attitude towards the examination that will make your examiners baffled, and you may not be able to perform excellently in that examination. So the point here is that as long as you do not have a diagnosed anxiety disorder, especially in this case we're talking about social anxiety disorder, do not, especially for students that engage in a lot of examinations, please do not take any medication that will alter the normal physiologic responses of your body, which might end up resulting in more negative consequences for you and for the outcome of your examination or any other activity you are about to engage in. All right, so thank you so much for listening. See you some other time.